that were so wonderful. Number one, this moment is infinite and eternal. Life exists only at this very moment. And in this moment, it is infinite and eternal. For the present moment is infinitely small. Before you can measure it, it has gone, and yet it exists forever. And Alan says, I have realized that the past and future are illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. No valid plans for the future can be made by those who have no capacity for living now. And many of you are spinning out your hopes and dreams. You've got a 5-year plan. You've got a retirement plan. You've got a plan for your children when they grow up. You're like planned to the max. Well, what he says is very, very true, and I will repeat it. No valid plans for the future can be made when you have no capacity for living now. That is worth you contemplating. And perhaps in your contemplation, you'll drop all your planning. Just drop it and be here now. Be here. And he goes on to say, tomorrow and your plans for tomorrow can have no significance at all unless you are in full contact with the reality of the present, since it is in the present and only in the present that you live. So he's very much, this thinking is very much aligned with the work I am doing in the discipline known as non-duality. And a couple of you have asked, what's the name of that book that you're very fond of? In this whole different viewpoint of reality, and it is called Living Reality. Now, I have ordered copies of it, so if you want to get some of that information, order the book from me, go for it. But you got to go on to Purple Portal 777 at gmail.com to let me know you'd like that. Another thing he says, the more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. And boy, oh boy, some of you have to do a lot of searching inside yourself. The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. People poke fun at me because I'm a maven of change, and I change my furniture and reading material. I change at every opportunity that doorway is open. And perhaps it's what it fuels me. It gives me life. So if you've had that sofa for 40 years, bye-bye. It's sunken, it's unbecoming, it's probably smelly, and you're ready for a new one. And I don't care if you change up at the local thrift shop, but change up. Here's one that I think is absolutely so right on the money, I can't wait to share it. Real religion is the transformation of anxiety into laughter. That should make a few of you look carefully at the doctrines you've been swallowing since the get-go. Real religion is the transformation of anxiety into laughter. And I'm going to show you the truth of that. The other evening, I was sitting very quietly, contemplating, doing my work, processing a lot of information, and it was kind of late for the phone to ring with a girlfriend that I don't hear from that often. It was approaching 9 o'clock. And it's just not the kind of gal that would call in the evening and that late. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I know she's been going through some very challenging health problems based on a situation that occurred in her childhood. It's kind of recurring now in her mid-70s. The minute I heard the tone of her voice, my antenna went up, and boy, I was really present for her. What had happened that day was she had gone for 3.5 hours of grueling physical and mental exercise to try to overcome the situation from childhood. And she just sounded, well, first of all, exhausted, but I can only tell you, inwardly hurt and harmed. It was too much. This woman is a very delicate woman. She's delicate in her thinking. Her constitution is delicate. And of course, I get crazed. What are these therapists thinking to put that kind of person through something grueling? It takes my breath away, because to me, it's unconscionable and cruel and downright unconscious on their part. They're simply unconscious. So I talked with her gently, and it didn't seem to lift much of anything. Her problem is she's begun to drag her leg based on a childhood issue. And so finally, she knows me well enough, and I know her well enough to say, okay, I don't think what I'm saying to you is lifting this at all. So I'm going to change the topic completely. And I want you to know full on that I'm going to tell you a story that has nothing to do with you, but you will understand it, and maybe this will make the change. And I kind of apologize, because I'm like, and P.S., this is a story about something about me and my personal life, and it's kind of twisted and kind of funny. And she knows some of the players in the twisted story. Well, she began to howl with laughter. Howl. Now, it meant I had to expose a part of myself that is deep and private, but I used it as medicine. It was as if I took a scalpel to scrape out what had happened to her that day. She laughed so hard and so deeply that she finally said, I don't even feel my leg. My leg is perfectly fine. And of course, then we both had a good laugh. And she felt so rich and fulfilled, because of course I couldn't help myself. I had to finish it up with, now you know you're sworn to secrecy, which that made us both laugh even more. Because there's love. And if love ain't religion, there isn't any such thing. And I called you the next day and said, so, how's your leg? And she said, are you kidding? I'm still laughing. The pain's gone. So I really think that Alan Watts, that in that one-liner, real religion is the transformation, in his words, of anxiety into laughter. But actually what happened, real religion in this case, was a transformation of pain and fear into laughter and healing. Some wise guys have indeed said laughter is the best medicine, and it is. Let me see what else he said. This one's good for some of you. Some of you are such clingers. Honest to Pete, you've got this let-go disease that has just escalated to this death clinging of situations in your life. And of course, I'm one who wants to go along to the cliff that your fingernails are like dug deep into and kind of just lift your fingernails up one by one and happily, lovingly watch you do a quadruple flip off the mountain. You will land on a feather bed into some magical territory. I promise. Oh my gosh, but your clinging is, it's beyond clingable. Anyway, here's what he says. Faith is the opposite of clinging to belief, of holding on. And some of you will assure me you've got abundance of faith as you're clinging. So again, I'll repeat it. Faith is the opposite of clinging to belief. It's the opposite of holding on. And he goes on to say with this, but the attitude of faith is to let go and become open to truth, whatever it might turn out to be. You know, truth is not static. Truth is always becoming. So what was truth at 7 o'clock this morning may not be truth now. He continues to have faith. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. We need more floaters in life. We definitely need more floaters. Oh, this is so lovely. He says, I see every one of you as the primordial energy of the universe. In other words, I don't see you as Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, or you're a scientist, or you're a lawyer, or you're a street person, or you're a failure, or you're a success. I see you as the primordial energy of the universe coming at me in your particular and special way. And I know that I'm that too. But we've learned to define ourselves as separate from it. And there is the cause of all of your problems. You've learned to define yourself as separate from the primordial energy of the universe. And in that, and of course you've been programmed to believe that too, in that there's war, there's conflict, there's struggle, there's judgment, there's comparison, there's every single thing that makes you sick. So as you realign with who you are as this absolute splendid spark of primordial energy, everything will heal, I tell you. Let me see. He has so many good things. And I wish I could tell you the site that this came to me on, but I can't. I simply must have printed it out. Someone who apparently really appreciates Alan Watts' work collected about 25 of these things, these sayings of Alan's, and put them all together. And sorry about that. Oh, wait a minute. See more. Here we go. See more at the unboundedspirit.com. Okay, so see more of Alan's lessons at the unboundedspirit.com. There's also here a / for those of you who want to check this out, /25 life-changing lessons to learn from Alan Watts. Oh, there's a whole lot of other junk with it. So I'm not going to give you all that stuff. It's too much. So you could also perhaps Google 25 life-changing lessons to learn from Alan Watts if it interests you. Here's one. Believe nothing, no matter who said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. Yeah, common sense it seems to be a little bit on the short side these days. We got to get back into the common sense of it. It is challenging because our food is so tainted, and the food of the olden days actually helped people have greater common sense, believe it or not.